Blog Talk Radio.
Happy 4th of July, 2013. This is the Hermetic Hour. I'm your host, Poke Runyon, and tonight we present a discussion on the symbolism and meaning of the 29th path of the Qabalistic Tree of Life, leading from Malkuth to Netsach. And this is the path of the moon. That's the tarot trump. And it is a watery route up to the 7th Sphere of Netsach, which is attributed to Venus. And it's attributed to the realm of nature and natural philosophy. Once again, our texts will be Dion Fortune's Mystical Qabalah and Gareth Knight's Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism. We will also summarize our own version of this path as recorded in our special Pathworkings DVD used in our associate member program. Now, in our system, the Goddess Astarte resides in the temple of Netsach, and her divine body contains all of the psychic centers, as chakras, of the lightning flash middle pillar system. So, if you want to get up close and magical with Mother Nature, tune in and we'll pay the goddess a visit. Now, this path, as the others we have been discussing, and the other two paths, are the ones that go up from Malkuth in Hestia, the sphere of the physical universe, and the sphere of manifestation, the sphere that we dealt with and tried to explain to you was really not just a mundane bottom of the tree. It's actually, Malkuth is the plane of manifestation. It's next to Keter is the most important sphere in the whole tree of life. And it's where things happen and things get done, and it's very, very magical. Now, from Malkuth, we have three paths leading up to one path over on the left side, leads up to the bottom of the Pillar of Prosperity, and that's Hod over there. And then on the right side, we have this 29th path, which we're going to explore tonight. And that leads on up to Netsach, the sphere of Venus, on the right side. And that's that side is called the Pillar of Mercy. And then we have right up the middle, and we already did that one, the 32nd path, and that leads up to the Sphere of Yesod, which is at the bottom of the middle pillar. And, well, Malkuth is the bottom of the middle pillar, but Yesod is right above Malkuth. And Yesod, of course, is called the foundation. It's the sphere of memory, and it's attributed to the moon, and it's the beginning of the so-called astral plane, or your zero dimension. Now, tonight, we're going to deal with the 29th path, and that, of course, is the path that leads up to Netsach, the sphere of Venus, which is attributed to Aphrodite and nature. And I'm going to read you from Gareth Knight's Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism. I'm going to read you the attributes of Netsach, so we'll know what we are heading up to. Now, the magical image of Netsach, traditional magical image, is a beautiful naked woman. Netsach is called the Sphere of Victory. The god name is Yahweh Sabaoth, and of course, the one change we made in the Hermetic Qabbalah that we use, we refer to this as a Masha Ozabaoth because we use a generic tetragrammaton, but it's traditionally it's Zabaoth. And the archangels Haniel and the order of the angels, very important. The order of the angels attributed to Netsach are the Elohim. Now, the Elohim, that's, of course, the plural of El meaning God. So Elohim means the gods. And literally, this means a group of pagan gods. And then the mundane chakra, in other words, the physical manifestation, is the planet Venus. Number 2 is unselfishness. And the titles are firmness and valor. A spiritual experience is the vision of beauty triumphant. The absolute color is amber, the ionic color is emerald, the etheric color is bright yellow-green, and the Isaiah color in Malkuth would be olive flecked with gold. Now, the vice is promiscuity and lust, and the symbols are the lamp, the girdle, and the rose. Now, that's, a bare-bones symbolic description of the Sphere of Netsach. Let's discuss the Sphere of Netsach first, and then we'll discuss the attributes of the path that go up to it, because they're both very, very much related. As you know, these paths, the symbolism of these paths is closely related to, obviously has to be, closely related to the attributes and the experiences expected in the sphere that they go to. And in fact, one of the secrets of properly coloring your tarot deck, which some people that try to do Golden Dawn tarot decks, they don't realize this. One of the secrets of properly coloring your tarot deck is to take the Minutum Mundum color of the sphere and make that color and the color of the path, as the Minutum Mundum, make that the secondary color, and I think it's the primary color is color of the path itself, because the tarot card is attributed to it, and a secondary color would be the color of the sphere in the Minutum Mundum. And what I mean by the Minutum Mundum is that this is the combination, Golden Dawn combination color scale, where the paths are absoluthic and the spheres are Briatic. We've explained that situation before, but this is a composite color arrangement we use for the Tree of Life. Now, a little bit technical here, but what I want to get across here about the symbolism of Netsach is that it is the sphere of natural philosophy, natural attributes, the sphere of, one might say, subliminal, basic, I hesitate to say animal urges and that sort of thing, because that gets a little bit negative. But this is the natural forces that we're symbolizing here. That, and we want to try to look at this, and we try to see this in the most positive and uplifting manner possible. Let's say that I would think the purest and most elevated idea of Netsach would probably be Farafarian, would be the not exactly the worship of nature, but the ensouling of nature, the idea that nature, being the work of God, the work of divine providence, that nature should be revered, and nature should be, whenever possible, nature should be extolled, and it should be beautiful. It should be seen in the most beautiful light possible. This is the inner working of the sphere, is the holiness and the beauty and the basic rightness of nature itself. And therefore, the generative process, the sexual process, if you will, is paramount in Netsach, because that's the creative process of nature. And so therefore, the magical image, of course, is a beautiful naked woman, which which is a symbol of the goddess, the earth goddess, the mother goddess, the goddess of love, the goddess of beauty. And in this case, in our case, of course, that fits the idea of Astarte, and even higher up, actually out of the sea, but that's much higher up the tree. But Aphrodite is generally was, of course, the Greek counterpart of Astarte. In fact, Aphrodite probably arose out of Astarte, actually. And so we place the goddess. This is the sphere of the goddess, and this is also the sphere of what I would call this is the sphere of paganism. This is the sphere that our Wiccan friends should be happiest with in all the Qabalah. A lot of them don't like the Qabalah, but let me say this. We spell Qabalah, or we try to most of the time spell Qabalah, Qabalah, Qabalah. And that differentiates it from Orthodox Hebrew Qabalah, which is Kabbalah. We pronounce it Qabalah. They pronounce it Qabalah. And the Hermetic Qabalah, for the past several hundred years, has incorporated a great number of aspects that's into its symbolism and into its meaning and into its operative structure that the Hebrew Qabalah doesn't deal with. And one of those aspects, of course, is the visual imagery of Renaissance art and the Renaissance interest in classical paganism. I mean, our Renaissance scholars and philosophers, even though they profess to be good Christians, and of course I'm sure that they felt that they were, but they were also absolutely fascinated with a revival of classical beauty, art, and sensuality, and so their version of the Qabalah, and of course we began to so-called Christianize or Rosicrucianize or whatever, hermeticize the Qabalah, re-hermeticize the Qabalah, because the Qabalah came out of Alexandria and it was originally inspired by the Hermetic tradition anyway, but it then for a while it became very, very Judified, and then the Renaissance philosophers, Ficino and Pico, especially Pico della Mirandola, they rediscovered it, and they were having their wonderful revival of classical paganism, and they began to incorporate all of this back into the Qabalah. So our Qabalah has a lot of these elements, and Netsach is really a place where this wonderful rebirth classical paganism, where it fits, where it goes, and so it is the best place. Netsach is the best place to have our representation of the goddess, and have her temple, and have this is where you should meet the goddess and take the goddess within yourself, and then let your spirit go into the goddess. And so we definitely do that in our version of this sphere. Now, and I will discuss how we do that when we get a little further on into this. Now, and of course, going up the path, we will start that. We'll start that process. Now, as you probably know by now, that these path workings they're anthropomorphized like physical journeys, like you're setting forth on a quest. And naturally, the Tree of Life is a schematic. We don't presume that the universe actually looks like this, or we set it up on a geometric. One thing we do know, and I think I should mention this, that there is a master grid, Pythagorean master grid, that the Tree of Life is established on. And there are many different configurations of the Tree of Life, all of which are valid provided they fit on this master grid. And if they don't fit on the master grid, then you can say then, well, they're not really valid. And I can look at, there are lots of books on magic out there, and I can flip through them, and boy, when I see one of these trees of life that is not set up on the grid, no matter how many paths or spheres it might have, if it isn't, I know that, this is one that is valid. So it, as a schematic, it should be set up geometrically on this grid. But, it looks kind of like a pinball machine. If you look at it, and when you look down at a pinball machine, you all seen a pinball machine at one time, I'm sure. But really, the universe isn't like a pinball machine, and we're to say that it does. We are just using this as an operative schematic to use our anthropomorphized symbolism. And one thing, I was about to say Kenneth Grant, that's a slip. One thing that, I like Kenneth Grant too, by the way, but one thing that Gareth Knight stresses in his Qabalistic Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism is the anthropomorphizing the symbolic extrapolations that we make from the images that we know and from the mythology that we want to apply to these situations. And so therefore, when we do these paths, we walk these paths, and then sometimes we fly from, using the boat, the higher paths, we fly over the paths we've already done, and then we get out, we walk them. And usually doing this in our hypnotic reveries where we're guided up the paths, we see these as natural settings, and the woods and the trees and the caves and the mountains and crossing the streams and going across the oceans or whatever it is we do, we see that in the settings that we know, natural settings, and we have the architecture and the symbols and the animals and the people and the gods and the goddesses, all the things we are familiar with, using these symbols to get across points and experiences which actually, in the sense that they had any transpersonal reality, the most you could probably say for them, if you're looking at ultimate reality, would be that they're geometric energy forms and matrices, and even how do we describe a living concept, or even a sentient being that is a living concept? These are extrapolations that even if you can wrap your mind around them, at the same time, they're difficult for you to actually grasp in an emotional way. So the symbolism is necessary, and traditional symbolism is necessary. Now, let's talk about the path that leads up to this wonderful, beautiful natural sphere of Netsach. Let's talk about the 29th path. The 29th path, as Gareth describes it, is the Hebrew letter is Pulf, and we translate that, of course, into Phoenician character. It makes it easier to visualize and easier to remember. And the spiritual significance is the sign of Pisces, the fishes. Now, I want to mention here that this path is not specifically assigned to the element of water. That's up there, further up the tree, up around where the hanged man is. But we need it. We need it for training purposes. We need it to get the elements taken care of in a symbolic manner as we start up the tree. And over there, on the 31st path, leading up to Hod, that's definitely attributed to the element of fire. Now, the 32nd path, leading up to Yesod, is attributed to the planet Saturn, but that is really, by default, that is the Qabalistic Earth element. So we can handle the gnomes and the Earth element on the 32nd path. But this leaves us over here with the 29th path going up to Netsach, being attributed to Pisces, which is not exactly the water element, but it's close enough. And so in order to get the water element across early in our work, be able to master these elements, we have taken the liberty of attributing the In other words, if you're going to meet the Undines, the mermaids, and I know Bill and Mr. Lay will like this. If you're going to meet the Undines, this is the place to meet them. And so we do that. And now the ruler of Flux and Reflux, child of the sons of the mighty, and the tarot card is the moon. A theory is supposedly the ruler of Flux and Reflux, child of the sons of the mighty. The tarot trump is the moon, and if you recall, this is one of the most mystical and one of the most mysterious of the tarot trump designs. And this is one where you have the wolf and the dog. The wolf on one side, the dog on the other, and the water. The lobster comes up out of the water. I like that because I'm a Cancer. So a lobster comes up out of the water between the wolf and the moon, and then there's these two mysterious towers off down the trail that leads ashore. These mysterious towers. Above that is the moon, and the moon is dripping. Well, you think in Waite's version it's dripping yods, but actually it's dripping blood. And so this is a very, very, very mysterious card. And now the 29th path is the corporeal intelligence, according to the old Qabalah, and so called because it forms every body which is formed in all the worlds and the reproduction of them. In other words, it's physical and visceral and physical and subliminal and all that good stuff. Anyway, so we're going to go and up this path. But what I want to point out is that going back again to when we first created this pathworking system that we have, and as you recall, we based it upon the actual hypnotic method of Kirpal Singh's pathworkings that he was doing in the Sikh Sant tradition. And we were fortunate enough to have a member who had studied under Kirpal, and so he was a good hypnotist, and he took us on one of these ones that Kirpal Singh had done. Kirpal Singh was the master of Paul Twitchell, who created the Ekankar, which was a whole cult. Did nothing but pathwork using. Oh boy, but anyway, the thing about Kirpal Singh's pathwork, number one, they were very hypnotic, and number two, they took you to specific attention points. And before Kirpal Singh developed this wasn't really done that much. I mean, sure, you visited various things on the path, and you got your impressions of them. But the way Kirpal Singh did this was he took you right up to the inscription, or to the entity, or to the be, or to whatever the feature was, and then the leader of the path, the guide, would say, "And now you are standing under this arch, and you are looking up at this inscription, and you could read the inscription. It is in a language you can understand, and it says something that's very important to you. You will remember it." And then he gives you 5 seconds or 7 seconds to see the inscription and remember what it is. That's the way Kirpal Singh did it. And this is what makes pathworkings worth doing. And this is what makes them into actual astral initiations. And so we were so fascinated by this that we got Gareth Knight's book. I already read his New Dimensions Red book, and he had a pathworking in there that he'd done. And they didn't use this attention point system. Well, he almost did, but not as specific as the way Kirpal Singh did it. So we took his Qabalistic, it's the Practical Guide to Qabalistic Symbolism, 2 volumes. It's Mac and Brett. It's a wonderful book. And all this analysis of the paths and the symbolism from the Hermetic Kabbalah point of view. I might say that Gareth Knight, Pastor Willoughby, was a follower and a successor to Dion Fortune. And so obviously this is Stella Matutina type, Golden Dawn type symbolism. Now, so Gareth, in his 2-volume set, he has articles on the paths and the spheres, and all of them. Dion Fortune, unfortunately, with her mystical Qabalah, she could only cover the spheres because she felt that the paths were secret, and yet by the time she passed on and Gareth Knight took over, the paths were no longer secret, so he was able to do this, and it's a wonderful book. Now, he, in describing the path, he describes that this path is attributed to to the sexual reproductive process and to the desires and the objectives and the desires of nature itself, and with a little bit of moralism thrown in, but still, that's essentially it. It's a pagan experience, and the goddess is very definitely figured. Now, Gareth Knight has in here, I'm going to read a little bit of this to you because you'll recognize it pretty quickly if you're familiar with our thing. He says, in the savage aspect of nature and in man, the whole history of taboo, superstition, blood sacrifice, the primitive magic of urine and entrails, that is the makeup of the hideous black Isis, which could be said to sit at the threshold of this path, the kind of a malignant sphinx. The answer to the terrible riddle of the sphinx is, however, man, and the highest form of physical existence, who goes through the travails of physical evolution, veritable labors of Hercules, to eventually become a god. And at the end of this terrible 29th path is the shining image of Netsach, the beautiful naked woman, the white Isis, the vision of beauty triumphant. This is not a thing that can be intellectually demonstrated, for it is a mystical experience, the transformation of the dark, hideous goddess to the bright, shining, and beautiful one. Well, I really, when I read that way back, oh gosh, that was 40 years ago, just a kid. And when I read that, boy, and I thought, yeah, and that's what we got to do. We got to confront the Dark Mother, and then after we get through a confrontation with the Dark Mother, then we can realize, get it up to Netsach, and we can realize the beauty of the great goddess herself. So that's what we did. So we set up our pathworking based upon what Gareth Knight had gotten into here. And by the way, he even described her as Lilith. But over here on a couple pages away, he says, one bird maiden, which corresponds well to the 29th path, however, is that depicted on the Sumerian baked clay plaque some 4,000 years old, who is earthy and lunar aspects are shown by her headdress of bull's horns and the measuring instrument she holds, and she's winged but has clawed feet, and both of these are bird attributions, but wings, in that they can lift to great heights, are cosmic spiritual symbols, while claws convey ideas of the primitive and even demonic. She is said to be Lilith, that strange woman who was said to be before Eve. Okay, so that's from old Basil, Gareth Knight, and off we went. Now, so here's what we did. We started out in the nighted reef, coral reef, under the night sky with a beautiful big full moon up there, because it's the moon tower part. And we went down under the water, and of course I was for years and years a spear fisherman and scuba diver and all that, so I'm very familiar with coral reefs, and so this was right at home for me. So we go down, and I've even done them at night too. So we go down into the beautiful luminous coral reef at night, and we meet the undines. And they're kind of shy, mermen, and we meet the undines, and the undines warm up to us a little bit, give us the secrets of the water element, and we remember that. And then we come to the surface, and we mount a seashell sled that is pulled by dolphins, and we go up over the crest of the waves and off toward the moon on the moon path, and that's when we come to the island of the Dark Mother. And of course, this we use the symbolism of the tarot card. We have a big statue of a wolf and a big statue of a dog on either side of the gate, going up to the surf, and we go ashore, and the island is very jungly, and it's just really dank and dark and a lot of decay and all, and deadfalls and whatever, and creepers, and so we go through this dark jungle, and we get to this clearing in the middle of the jungle, real deep grass, and in the middle of this clearing is this ruined old temple. And in the middle of that temple, inside that temple, is the statue of the Dark Mother, which looks an awful lot like Lilith. And we have to crawl on our bellies to get down through the arches because the temple is sunk down into the kind of the mud. And we have to crawl on our bellies to get into the temple. But before that, we see, I don't know whether I want to spoil this for you too much, but we see all these carved figures all the way around the temple. Yeah, if you can hear the fireworks outside, I don't know. But you see these figures carved all the way around the temple, doing all kinds of horrible things, and so we crawl through, and we have our confrontation with the Dark Mother and her dark wisdom, and then on the inside of the temple we see all the other side of these people doing all these horrible things, and so we have a revelation there, which I won't let you wonder about that. But anyway, so then we come out, we crawl out of the temple again, and we go down the other side of the island, and then we have a sort of a cleansing experience. We get to wash off in this beautiful lagoon, and down in the lagoon we find these pearl oysters and these singing pearls. We all swim down to our individual pearl, and this is an unburned soul, and so it's very innocent, beautiful, and so we can commune with this, sort of get ourselves purified after all of this, and cleaned out, to come back up and get on our dolphin sled again, and then we go off to the island of Netsach, which is, of course, the sphere. And we get to the island, and that's the Piscean Gate. We go through that. We get on the island. It's a beautiful, beautiful temple of Astarte, and it has a copper dome, and it's round, and it has a beautiful green jade pillars and daphyrus green veils, and there's beautiful gardens and carp and pools and doves cooing and roses growing and all of the symbolism that you expect from the Temple of Astarte. But when we get up in there into the temple is about, the dome inside is 100 feet tall, and it's this pool of living water, huge pool of living water, and the goddess Astarte, who is approximately 50 feet high, that's 50 feet high, seated. She is seated in the sauna in the center of the pool with the water up around her just below her navel. And she is in trance, sitting there, and you can see all of her psychic centers glowing like jewels inside her translucent body as you're looking up and up and up and up. And now, this relates to the symbolism of the Sphere of Netsach, of course, marvelously well, but also, too, I want to point out that the goddess Tara, and the goddess Tara in Tibet, and there are several different versions of Tara in Tibet, but the cult of Tara consists of Tara as being the universe. And we have had several Tara initiations, and I kind of feel like that this is the same sort of thing here in Netsach, with the goddess Astarte is actually our counterpart to the Tibetan goddess Tara, in which she represents the universe. She is the universe. So we can have this wonderful experience of exploring the psychic centers themselves inside the goddess herself. And this is a beautiful, beautiful initiatory experience. And so you can imagine this gigantic figure of the goddess looming over you. And here you are, just a tiny little person down there, and you go up inside the goddess. And then when you get up to Netsach inside the goddess, you go in there and you can have an even more of an experience. I don't want to exactly reveal how that, I probably heard that one. I don't want to, give that experience away, because that's one of the high points of the pathworking. But this becomes your full introduction, mystical introduction to the Caduceus of Hermes, the middle pillar on the lightning flash. This is the supreme experience of Netsach. And so you can come back down and out, and we retrace the path. But when we go back, we go around the island of the Dark Mother. We don't have to go back through that, and then back to the reef of the Undines, and then up through the chakra symbol. In this case, it is the chakra symbol of the moon, and then down down from the mirror or the soul door back into our bodies, and we have completed the pathworking. Now, this, of course, is all of this, including the work which depicts it, and the questions, the attention points and the questions for them are all on the DVD, the Pathworking DVD, and of course I'm naturally encouraging you to join the associate member program so you can order the Pathworking. But it's important this evening, though, for you to understand the basic symbolism, at least in the Hermetic Qabalah, of this path, and how it should be, how we think at least it should be experienced. Now, let's discuss, as Gareth Knight does in his book here, how he discusses the very important relationship between Netsach and Hod. Now, remember we did Hod last time. Hod is the sphere of the intellect, and Netsach, of course, is the sphere of the natural emotions, and the sphere of more of the mystical related to the natural emotions and related to the. You could say Hod is more of a left brain thing, and Netsach is more of a right brain thing. You could use that analogy if you want, or you could say that Netsach is more feminine, and you could say Hod is more masculine. You could say that too, I suppose. But actually, what these two spheres, as Gareth Knight points out, they are very, very much interrelated, because they're both very, very important in magic. And in fact, you really are not going to do any magic without using both of them, because magic, certainly you can do mysticism without Hod. You can have the mystical experience. Now, the difference between mysticism and magic, as I think most of us know, is that the mystic is a passive experience where the mystic prepares himself or herself and just lets it come. You can do this by putting yourself into a meditative reverie, by fasting, and by you can do this by very strenuous bicycle riding. I mean, you could bring on mysticism or mystical experience in a number of ways, but you don't with a mystical experience. You're not trying to direct it. You're not trying to say, I am going to contact such and such an entity in such and such a local, in such and such a spiritual venue, and I'm going to do this. And this is magic. Magic, at least the way we practice it, is very visionary, and you're very spontaneous and all of that. But magic is an exercise of will, and will has to be. In order to do magic, you have to get into the sphere of Hod and use these processes that we've developed, this kind of software, if you will, if you want to look at it from a computer standpoint, to get what you're going for, and to get a vision and get a knowledge vision, or to accomplish something based upon the principles that you're going to use. Now, so mysticism is very subliminal and very kind of catch as catch can, and it's capricious. You can't sure whether you're going to or not. And whereas magic is precise. Now, Hod is attributed to Mercury, and that's just the sphere of Mercury, the planet, of course, is all hot on one side, cold on the other, and so there's a certain hard logic about Hod. And the two spheres work very much together. Now, one of the reasons why we put the psychic centers, the spheres, and the goddess and all this over in Netsach and not in Hod is because these are actually spheres of mystery and emotion and these are not hard fast objects we can that easily define. They have a mystical, ephemeral quality to them, and that should be actually contained. As I said, this is something that the goddess should contain, and this is something that this is of the subconscious, whereas Hod tends to be the conscious mind accessing the subconscious. And so the psychic centers, the chakras, the god belong to the goddess. I feel like that they do. I don't feel that they should be. If I'm going to sail strange seas in a ship, I want the ship to have a woman's name. I don't want it to have a man's name, because if it has a man's name, it's liable to hit something. Whatever. Ships should have the names of ladies, and I feel that the goddess, in this sense, contains the deepest secrets and the deepest mysteries, and that's where our psychic center should be. Now, in the idea of the pagan forms, as I remember now, here again, this does actually relate to the traditional Hebrew Qabbalah, because they say that this is the sphere of the angels of the Elohim. That's Zohar. So they are saying themselves that this is the pagan sphere. And I'm going to, at the risk of having some people say that I'm doing too much violence to Qabalah, which of course the Qabalah can handle it, I'm sure. I don't think there's so much violence I can do to it. But the Zohar, which I have all 22 volumes, or 23 with the index, and I found a great deal of paganism in the Zohar. I mean, really, I had found there is a wonderful underpinning of paganism in the Zohar. Now, also I might add that the Shar Shirim, the Song of Solomon, which is very, very erotic and very sensual, that is the secret heart of the Zohar. The Shar Shirim. Now, this should indicate that Netsach absolutely should be the sphere of the magical goddess, and you know, there's really no doubt about that in my mind. But then we set out, back when we started the OTA way back in 1969-70, we started out with the idea, even though we were a lot of this was subliminal and subconscious inspiration, but still, from a Hodian point of view, you know, he started out with the idea that we are going to make a bridge between the pagan movement and witchcraft and all, and ceremonial magic. We're going to make the bridge. We're going to make the connection. We are going to, because the pagans weren't getting along with the magicians, and the magicians weren't getting along with the pagans, and there's no reason for this. There's no reason for this at all, because the Renaissance so-called Christian magicians, especially in Italy, were very pagan. I mean, my gosh, Pacino and Giordano Bruno Campanella and those guys were really pagan. And the Hypno Erotomachia is a huge magical book that's a pagan dream. And so there's no reason why we can't take ceremonial magic and put the paganism back into it, because it was in the Renaissance. Somehow or other, it got watered down and kind of drizzled out during the Victorian era. Well, not entirely, because, you know, the Golden Dawn has a lot of Egyptian symbolism in it, and so it's there. But there is, as I say, there is no reason why our pagan community should be looking down and say, oh, those people are those CMs, I don't fool around with them. No. Now, we've got the bridge. And the bridge, of course, is the best place to have that bridge and to establish that link is in Netsach, which is, as I say, the sphere of the goddess. And the goddess is where the center system, the chakras should be. Now, enough said about that. And next week, you're going to have a real treat for you. And very important. Next week, we're going to interview Frater Ashen Chasson, and he is the author of Gateway Through Stone Circle, a manual of evocation for the planetary intelligences. Now, this is published by Nephilim Press. It just came out. And I've just finished this book. It's a nice hardcover, beautiful hardcover with a beautiful silver sigil embossed on the cover. And I have to tell you that this book is one of the best, if not the best, book on practical ceremonial magic in the Renaissance, well, I could say Solomonic tradition. It's primarily the Trithemius Book of Secret Things from Barris Magus is what he's primarily using as his grimoire base. But this book is absolutely wonderful, and the reason being that the author has done all of his preparations. He has done everything right, and he has built his own equipment, and he had gone ahead, trained himself, and done these operations, these wonderful angelic operations in the crystal, and he's written in a very, very beautiful and adult and sophisticated style. I mean, this is really a book that, well, frankly, to say the truth, I wish I'd written it myself. It's really, really beautiful, and one of the things I like about it so much is that he is in his own way and through his own lights and his own experiences, he is validating what we have been trying to teach, trying to get across. And this, as I say, there are so few books on magic in which you know that you are reading the works of a real magus, a man who is really doing it. So next week we're going to have the magus himself on board. I've already talked with him, and we're looking forward to that. And so next week, Frater Ashen Chasson, Gateways Through Stone and Circle. And until then, a happy 4th of July. You still hear the fireworks out there. Happy 4th of July and good magic.